Hello, I'm Joseph, and today I'm going to explore the possibility of a few scenarios, really, of a canal that may or may not be being built presently in Colorado. A lot of times, as is the case with large infrastructures, you're contributing towards the creation of it, whether you realize it or not, as a conglomerate, as a country, as large construction projects, sort of one thing leading to the other. But I do think it is intentional after having created this case study. So we'll get to this map in a second, which sort of goes over everything. I'm going to go down the river, if you will. But let's get started with some prerequisites. If you didn't know, the canal is an ancient concept that has been modernized, especially in the United States. It's considered one of the engineering wonders of the world. I forget what it's called. It's the intercoastal highway, basically, and that runs along the Gulf of Mexico. Let's look it up really quick, shall we? Intercoastal highway, waterway. Excuse me. This probably will be a good article. There's already an existing labyrinth of canals and various other channels in place all over the country of the United States. Some of the more famous ones, the St. Lawrence Waterway, which I guess we can look at Google Earth to see it. The St. Lawrence Waterway over here, which connects Chicago. You go up through Lake Michigan. I've done this before myself, actually, so I know a little bit about it. Through Lake Huron, through here, past Detroit, over in Lake Erie, through the last, all but the last, excluding Lake Superior. And then it actually, if you zoom way in, there is a waterway that you might not have known about. Let's get rid of these roads really quick. There's a way to get through called the St. Lawrence, and it's just incredibly beautiful, but also that's where you'll see large, we might be able to spot one and just Google Earth. There's one. Large cargo ships. That might just be land, but anyway, there are large cargo ships going up and down, and it's just massive, and it eventually connects you to the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, which of course permits for you to access the greater world, the greater continent. When I went through the St. Lawrence, I think we shortcut. I always have trouble remembering, but I think we shortcut through right here. Don't quote me on that, though. I might be incorrect. And then around Nova Scotia and into Boston was the trip I took. But in any case, there's also a labyrinth of other intercoastal waterway to choose from. Inland waterways such as this one. And a canal basically makes it so that you can go through locks. And if you didn't know what a lock is, well, before I get to locks, and this was sort of an unexpected part of my lecture, but I think it's important. Before I get to locks, let's show you the Gulf. There's also the Florida Keys, which is just fascinating that they built that highway along the Florida Keys. Excuse me. There's also the you can see it's all this safe harbor passageway that's channeled out, that these large cargo ships take advantage of without worrying about storms. And as I mentioned, it's one of the great marvels of the engineering marvels of the world. So you go, all along here, and they lead to these rivers, so they can take these rivers inland. I think that's a river. Yeah, it looks like one. They can take these rivers inland if they want to, or they can just have safe passage along here, and it's massive. And a lot of it is natural, The United States being blessed with, I believe it's the most inland waterway of any country, and then of course the engineering to boot to go along with it. There's the Gulf and everything to go along with it. Let me show you, if you didn't know, what a lock looks like. Go over here. We'll get to that in a second. That's a lock. That's me in a lock on somewhere on the St. Lawrence. I went through, I believe, 32 locks on this sailboat. So I do have a bit of experience myself as a first mate, traveling through those locks, tying up, and with a whole lot of tying up to be lowered down or raised up in those locks. It can do either function. And then I also have experience as a Class 4 commercial raft guide on the Pooter, as well as experience on the Colorado and Clear Creek, and quite a bit of just off-time experience as well. And I worked on the Mobiles in Grand Lake, which feeds into the Colorado. And so the Colorado is a very important water system. One more thing I'll add to my unexpected. Let's see if we can find a nice picture of the Colorado, because it's one of the most important rivers on the West Coast. That picture, you see that picture right there? I've been out down inside of that portion of the river, and it is beautiful. Well, it might not have been that exact portion, but there are bends that look just like that I saw. And so it really is something else seeing it from the water. And I encourage you on a raft of this style, if you can find a party who can do it safely, I encourage you to make the trip, because it is once in a lifetime opportunity. But let's find a map, shall we, of the Colorado. I had a good one somewhere, but this is the Colorado, and as you can see, it's massive, and it has a massive it spans out across several states in the United States, and it's very important for the water consumption, as well as I think will become more important for trade, commerce. So let's see, where was I? So we'll go back over here, and I put together some concepts, and so we'll come back to that. The Byzantine Canal, please do research this, but I'll give you just a brief synopsis here. This is an excellent brief synopsis. Around the decline of the Roman Empire, and I'm not a historian, so don't quote me on any of this, but as I understand it, around the decline of the Roman Empire, this canal system and aqueduct system came into the fore, the both of them. Very important for both water and commerce, and you can see it was quite extensive for its time. Of course, pales in comparison to modern day infrastructure, and that's mostly a function of technology, I believe, as well as the need to rapidly expand the United States at the time. Now, canals are not always a good idea. When I was around the time I was in high school, I took a class called Human Geography, and we studied the good and the bad and the ugly of the Yangtze. And communist China, you know, they didn't really, I feel, do a very good job of accommodating the people that were displaced. Although lots of people were accommodated, a lot of them were forced to move with no compensation. And heaven forbid something like that should occur in the United States, which I'll get to. I talked about that. Now, I'm going to mention some motives, because I actually was displaced myself. I was displaced not once but twice, and this is what kind of gave me the idea as to why I might have been displaced. This is sort of what motivated me to create this and other presentations as it relates. So if it interests you, you might read some of this. It also may or may not tie into the story of Jonathan May, which is essentially a commoditization of resources story. That is a true story, written by one Bill Cooper, or excuse me, I don't think he wrote that chapter, but he certainly did publish it. I think he actually took the story from an actual memoir written by Jonathan May, if I recall correctly. That relates indirectly, so I'll skip past that. You can read it if you want to. And then around the time of publishing, that bridge was taken out around March 26th. I don't know the exact date. And so something complicated like this, there may or may not be other factors at play. So, read that if you want to. And this gentleman, it sort of ties in also. But in this, there definitely ties in. Not only was I was displaced in a sort of what seemed at the time irrational. Now I'm coming to realize it is much more rational story. And I don't want to give you a sob story or anything, but we definitely were were relocated, and I think this is why. Let's open up. I'll let you look at it, and then we'll quickly skip past it. I'm sorry. So, looks like they wiped it. Isn't that interesting? That's okay. It's on Teller County Misconduct 2022, which is a documentary I made if you want to watch it, if you want to see that story. This is the property we were displaced from. And it was in a canyon, a unique canyon in that it was not only beautiful and not only consisting of very old ranching style of areas, but also, as you'll find out, very navigable if you were to fill it up with water. I thought this was interesting. I'm not taking this from the politics side. Please don't think I'm generating politics one way or the other than what happened to my family, my story being important. I just think these maps are amazing. But I also think that they relate because, I mean, look at this. Doesn't this look like a stroke is about to happen with this overburdened rail system going from Wyoming on east? It's just overburdened, if you don't mind my saying so. And son, I'm on the phone, please. Excuse me. And then, of course, we've got Denver, DIA, being a major hub for the airports as well. So the rail up to the north of Denver and the Denver itself sort of subsisting without any major waterway to connect the east and the west coast using the rail and the air. And then, yeah, this next map showing the massive infrastructure that is enabled by default just by simply having water with no infrastructure per se needing to be built. And getting into that mighty Mississippi, the Missouri also should be shown. I feel Missouri is also very important. And then up on they just barely show it in Oregon, but that also is a very important river up there. I think that's called the Yukon. Interesting maps. And this study is really cool. So I'll skip past it. The whole design of the way I present is that you can read at your own pace if you do so choose. And I will kind of give you the spark notes. But you're certainly missing out, if you don't take the time to read all of this. And I will, by the way, create supplementals for you of all these links. But this article is sort of what gave me the idea for what may or may not be occurring right now, the creation of this network of canals. Was it this one? Yeah, it was this one. You can see this map. Look at how close together these two rivers are. And look at how close together these two rivers are. Now, I will not in this presentation, I probably won't remember to go over the North Platte, but the North Platte is also a candidate, in the scenario deck. If you're going to choose, it's sort of like water. It's not unlike water. Water is going to choose the easiest route. And so you might, if you look at the map, you might see not only are they building infrastructure along the Colorado for such a thing as a canal, you might also find some infrastructure being built up to the north. But what I think the reason they might not choose Wyoming for a canal, not so much that it's cold, but although I think that is a reason, and windy, but the cold and windy makes for a miserable climate, and so people don't want to live up there as much. And so getting people, not only that, but the infrastructure not as well in place. And the economics of it. Colorado is extremely wealthy because of the Rocky Mountains and the resources and the geopolitical, and also the just being centrally located. So I use the reference of Constantinople or Byzantine. I think it is a valid analogy. Let's see, where else? Now, a water slide, if you didn't know, has a pipe or a tube. Excuse me, son, I'm on the phone. A water slide has a pipe or a tube that will replenish it so that you can enjoy that water slide. And most people don't even know that that's there, but in point of fact, it is. And we call that a pipeline, or in some cases, it's called an aqueduct in the business. And then, real quick, look at this older profile of it says Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. This is called a profile, and this shows the altitude changes that you will experience when you go through either an aqueduct or a lock. You can use a profile for either, so pretty interesting there. There are a number of pipes in place. I bet you didn't know that. Or maybe if you knew, you didn't know how extensive they already are and are becoming very rapidly. Here's one of them. And here's another. We will actually touch on this. I think this is one of the more important ones for a canal to be built, actually, and it's already in place. And this is a pretty important map as well for my presentation. So feel free to bookmark any portion of this video to go back on for later. And yep, like I said, feel free to read at your own pace. Use that pause button. Southern Delivery System Water Project. Now that's not directly related to the Rocky Mountains, but I think it will eventually, if it doesn't already, feed in to those Rocky Mountains. I guess I can't go to the other images, but that's okay. That's the one I wanted you to see. That basically goes from the Pueblo Reservoir on back up to Colorado Springs and sort of recycles that water, not unlike a water slide. And then, yep. And this is all very interesting stuff. And then there's always dams being proposed, and a lot of times they go through. But what they don't talk a whole lot about is those pipelines that regenerate. That the narrative being conserve. Well, is it possible that they are trying to get you to not see something else? Is it possible there are other directions being taken? And this is an interesting website. Look at all these links on the right side. You might go to this website later on your own time. All right, so I'm going to take a break while you watch this really quick. This will lead into everything else.
In order to continue to provide a reliable water supply, Aurora is planning to build a new reservoir called Wild Horse Reservoir. Located in Park County, about 6 miles west of Spinney Mountain Reservoir, Aurora has one of Colorado's most effective and successful water conservation programs and operates Prairie Waters, the state's most innovative and largest potable reuse system. However, conservation and reuse alone will not meet future demand. Wild Horse would store up to 93,000 acre-feet of water, enough for almost 280,000 households annually. The reservoir does not require securing any new water rights and would be filled with water Aurora already owns. The location was selected to minimize environmental impacts. The reservoir's size, depth, and location would minimize evaporation. The location requires no forest removal and would not impact jurisdictional wetlands or endangered species. The reservoir would be filled using existing water rights from the Arkansas and Colorado rivers that are stored in Turquoise Lake and Twin Lakes. Water is moved from Twin Lakes to the Otero pump station. The Otero pipeline would move the water to fill Wild Horse Reservoir. Wild Horse is off-channel, meaning no river or stream flows into or out of the reservoir. Water from Wild Horse would be transported through a pipeline running east to Spinney Mountain Reservoir. From there, water enters the South Platte River and pipelines to the city's water treatment facilities or down to Aurora Reservoir. The reservoir has several benefits. It would allow Aurora to more effectively use the water supplies it already owns, maximize conservation and reuse, minimize impacts to the environment, rivers, and streams, improve Aurora's reliability and resiliency, and would result in economic and recreational benefits to Park County. Construction is anticipated to begin in the mid-2020s and targeted for completion in the early 2030s. For more information, visit wildhorsereservoir.org.
Okay, so you might have seen some unusual things in that presentation. First of all, there were no comments allowed on the video, which I thought was interesting, it being a public utility that they're building, a public lake. I sort of drew it in. I wish that I had been able to keep my old drawing that I spent a great deal of time on making, but we've got this version of it. You can see I attempted to draw a crude version of the dam. There's another dam here. I believe there's a third dam right there. And so something interesting that I noticed, if you draw a polygon around here, which I have done, and we go up to, I called it Hartzell Reservoir. Where did it go? Hartzell Reservoir. You can sort of see what it may look like if you were to fill it in with water. And if you ever go up to Park County, this valley is just endless, and you could fill it up, and you could literally supply a whole country of water. And that's a great thing. But not being in communist China, you might notice there are people on a grid down here. And in the past, Park County has kicked a bunch of people off of their own land about a decade or two ago. And it would appear there is not an easy way for many people who are, having owned property there. I can attest there's a lot of people who are simply impoverished, and they make it very difficult to develop, almost as though it's by design. In my opinion, it is by design. And it might be something to do with this, or it might be something to do with the story of Jonathan May, or it might have something to do with the casinos that are propping up there and the ranches to accompany. And so they're sort of redesigning the entire area, it would appear. And you'll notice down here, do you see how this, as you raise the altitude of the lake, it sort of dumps in there. It dumps into that little new reservoir they're building. And so if this was dug out, which it is and it will be, this wouldn't be here, which would cause for massive amount of evaporation and runoff. And it sort of makes it so that if there is a flood or if there's a drought, both are accommodated in much the same way. Any case, moving forward, are there any more things I wanted to show you? There's a map of it. That's a better drawing. So, and you can see, I don't know if you saw it in the video, but there's that pipeline that runs. And my pipelines, I'll be honest, are not accurately drawn at all. So take that with a grain of salt. For example, I didn't know where the pump station was here, nor did I really know where these pump stations were. but they were along those creeks, so I just estimated based on the creeks that I saw out there. And there's just not a whole lot of information in general about the location of these pump stations, but I sort of guessed. And so take that with a grain of salt. It's very possible I drew one or more of those incorrectly. In any case, it would appear they have the ability to pump the water up, just like a water slide, but also the narrative being it's for the reuse of water for the bustling populace, which is all along the Front Range from, I would say, Pueblo on up to Cheyenne, Pueblo, Colorado on up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and everything in between, Fort Collins, Denver, Boulder, etc. Longmont. So, without further ado, let's go on a little rafting journey, shall we? We'll start at the Colorado headway for the Blue River. Let's get to it. Yes, Blue River. Make sure that's right. Okay, and we'll open up the profile, which I briefly talked about earlier. And we can see that it has a nice profile for a canal. So, zoom way in. And if you were to take the Colorado, if they were to add just a tiny bit of water to the upstream of the Colorado, it would be navigable by a very large ship with a 12-foot draft or 12-foot deep, which is the minimum requirement for a cargo ship. I think that on the St. Lawrence, it's around 750-foot length on a cargo ship. On the Panama Canal, it can get a little longer. I think it's 1,200 feet. But once you're at about 700 feet, if you didn't know, that's a massive ship as it is. So if you even were able to accommodate such a ship, that would be enough. And you can see as we go. Let me go through the whole river for anybody who might be wanting to see it all at once. The whole canal waterway, 114 miles, and you would definitely need to build locks along, especially the steeper portions. So another reason why you might want to have that water slide effect with the pipes, there are only a few ways when you're dealing with a steep mountain like the Rocky Mountains that you can make it easier for those cargo ships to navigate. Well, you can increase the flow, which is a few factors. You can increase the depth of the water. That makes it less treacherous. You can get rid of the winding and turning. You can get rid of the you can increase the flow, I had said. You can add locks to slow things down. But you're sort of limited what options you have. And of course, the angle of the incline or decline is very important as well. So you can see, where are we right now? You can see that most of the time, I estimate, and this could be wrong, but I aim for 1% or less incline or decline without needing a lock. I don't know the exact number. But if it's, I know that as a raft guide, I'm sort of a little more on the wild side, so I can handle, anything up to a class 4 myself, although I prefer a class 3, and my peers would probably say I'm about a class 3 guide. In any case, this does go through, it does go through Breckenridge. And let's zoom in on Breckenridge really quick. Doesn't it look almost like, if you focus on the commercial buildings only on the left side here, going up this hill, doesn't it look like, or it could be downhill too, I suppose, if you were to make it navigable in both directions, which you certainly would want to do. Doesn't it look like a footprint of a canal is already sort of in place? If you were to imagine this parking lot and this field and a couple of other things are just underwater, doesn't it sort of look like there's locks already in place? the footprint therein. In any case, we're coming up on the hardest part of our journey for this stretch, this Blue River stretch of the 114 miles that I've come up with. And there's a pass coming up. If I didn't pass it already. Yep, there's a pass coming up, which it can, you see how the road is windy. The road kind of winds around, but a boat, it wouldn't be, a cargo ship, it wouldn't be as practical to do that. Now check this out. Remember that pipeline? One of those pipelines pumps right up to here. That's interesting. So they can feed perhaps an unlimited amount of water into that pipeline. And, in that pipeline up to this reservoir, which is called, it lets me see. It won't, of course. That's not the name of it. I forget the name of it. In any case, you look it up in the book. And then continuing our journey, we're coming up on Hartzell, Colorado, which is where, and Fairplay, the host of the famous South Park television show. Fairplay will be first, and then Hartzell. And we're also coming up on that large, massive valley that can probably accommodate an almost unlimited amount of water. You can see the existing infrastructure as well as the there's my land grab. That's where they are trying to not receive our taxes. Basically, it doesn't matter what we do. It feels like they will not receive our taxes, and maybe it has to do with this floodplain, or maybe it's just they know that it's going to be a nice lakefront property. This is conjecture, of course, but I've got my reasons for my beliefs on the subject, which check out Joseph K. Media on YouTube, Love Letter Media on Facebook for more info on that. But let's see, my disorganization. I wish it was better at alphabetizing. That would be easier, wouldn't it? Hartzell Reservoir. Let's go over that one more time really quick. Now that you've seen it. Yeah. Land underwater eventually. Or maybe it'd be a nice lakefront, huh? Wouldn't that make its value go up quite a bit? I think probably right there. That's probably a reasonable size for a lake if you're going to feed the whole East Coast. East of the Rockies, that is. And that completes the first portion of our journey from starting at the Colorado, the end of the Colorado. Now we'll go on to this short portion here to Lake George. This might be hard for me to find. Stand by. Lake George to Florissant. That's a small portion. We're going 11 mile. That's what it's called. Where did it go? 11 mile. Okay. Let's load that profile, shall we? Nice 1.6% grade. That's navigable, isn't it? Let you guys see that first. I'll try to do that every time before I start. Let you see what it looks like before we go. Into Lake George. Alright, I'm going to zoom in and check it out. Pretty short little stretch. Pretty much already built by the natural features. Into Lake George. And the next portion of our journey is Lake George on to Florissant. Where did that go? Lake George to Florissant. Is that it? Did I miss something? Oh, okay. That's right. It forks right here. It forks here, so let's pick a route. Do you want to go to Denver first, or since I already picked that one, let's go to the Springs first, shall we? So we'll load that elevation profile. That's a nice average slope of 1.7%. That's doable. To Florissant, pretty short stretch, pretty flat, pretty easy to just naturally fill up that river. Now these things, see that right there? There's a lot of those coming up. So that's why I have, I mean, you could also, I guess, look at who owns the property, which I might do another feature on. Who owns the property? That'd be a good reveal for a lot of this, a lot of what's going down. Oh, that's as far as it goes. Pretty short stretch. What's next? I think we're going to do... Where did it go? Cheeseman, red cabin. I'm having trouble finding this one. Maybe if I look at it, it will help me remember. So it's Florissant to... Oh, that's why I'm having trouble. It was minimized on me. Sorry guys, 1 second. Yeah, there it is. Sorry about that. Let's load that profile, shall we? .5%. So I don't think it's that bad. This, unfortunately, there's a bug, as I understand it, with Google Maps, which causes some of my placeholders to fail or to move. Like, for example, right here. That's not a good example. In any case, some of the right there. There's a good example. See how this rode up on the lip? It wasn't like that before I started my presentation. So, unfortunately, this portion of the journey I'll have to redo for another presentation, because when it goes up on the lip, it's saying 7.6%. That's obviously not the grade we're dealing with, and so that's going to skew this number significantly. But as I recall, everything I got down to approximately 2% grade. So just take my word for it, but you can still get an idea of what it will look like at least. And then I will have to come back at a different time to rebuild that portion of the journey. Apologize for that. Let's see. Yeah, that's silly. I wish it hadn't done that, because I must have forgot. It could be also I just forgot to save it. But I mean, our slope, if you look, it's really not that bad. It shouldn't be going up on the shore like that. You know, but look at these things. Look at these artificial little lakes. See them all? Why are those there? Is it perhaps because they're getting ready to build a canal? And some of this is just I followed those lakes as best I could. Some of it's just guesswork. A lot of times, water just goes the easiest route, right? So you just follow it. Follow a creek if you find a creek or a ravine. And you know, you can do this yourself. But it dumps right there around this Charis Bible College, is that how it's pronounced? And then I didn't connect here. I kind of left that there on purpose so that I could try to figure out later on the best way. Maybe it would wind around like that, you know. Or maybe they would at some point build some infrastructure there. Alright, and then we said we were going to go down to the springs, so let's do that. We'll go Charis to Manitou. Average slope 2%. This is actually, as I recall, the most treacherous portion of the journey. And actually, if you've ever been on this road with a car, it can be a little hairy sometimes, you know. Of course, with a boat, they're going to make it a little smoother in the water itself. If you got, that's why I mentioned you got to get your volume up of the water, and so you can see. This is important. I'm going to just run you through these images before I forget. This dam is being bolstered right now. I already showed you that. I'm going to show you that, but there it is again. This dam is being bolstered right now. And I think it might relate to having these two dams, having some nice flow for some splashy fun coming from all three sides. You can see that pipeline. It's conjecture, but I made a purple pipeline also, which would lead into the Pueblo Reservoir to make it unlimited. You can just regurgitate all that splashy fun. So let's go through the profile really quick on the macro. And then we're going to go on down to the springs, shall we? Little bit of displaced residents that might have to occur. Now, Woodland Park, if you didn't know, that's interesting. Wonder what they're building right there. If you didn't know, Woodland Park is real close to that Air Force base, and I think as a result, there's just quite a few military personnel who kind of live in their area. From what I gathered when I lived there, before we were displaced. And you can actually, if I understand correctly, you can pretty quickly get over to the Air Force Base via the roadway. I went through a scenario where they might be able to run a canal through there, but probably more important would be just having a pipeline up to this lake, now that I think of it. And they had a forest fire right down up through there recently. That's interesting. Pipeline up to this lake, up to this reservoir, so that it could be an unlimited flow through here. And then into this gradual and at times hairy trip down Memory Lane, White Knuckle Lane. And definitely there's places you need a lock, but also, I mean, with enough depth with elimination of curves and enough depth and enough volume, you can certainly cheater. If you've got enough water, you can cheater and overcome a lot of the construction needs of needing to build those locks. And then that dumps us out into Colorado Springs, which, if you look here, we follow that river and those creeks. It looks like there's some infrastructure in place or being put in place for some lock action, or maybe just some increasing of the volume that the river can accommodate all along this corridor and dumping out into Pueblo eventually. And look at that big old lake with a pipeline attached to it. That's interesting. And then another scenario, I'm going to only run the ones I think they're going to do. But another scenario you could do is that, what is it? Well, let's go from Lake George to Denver. So you can see I drew a lot of scenarios. You can go through West Creek, or you can go through Woodland Park, or you can take the natural river. Now, if you take the natural river, you'll note there isn't a whole lot of infrastructure in place. So that sort of rules that one out. Even though it's, nature does a good job, they're making it relatively smooth ride. There is no infrastructure in place, so that would take too much money to build. And West Creek is just a gorgeous drive, there is a road along West Creek, but it's sort of a highway, and it would appear there's only one or the other. And I think also there's some treacherous slopes on there that would just hamper the boat. And then there's this route as well, and you can see there may or may not be some infrastructure being built. As you know, my theory is that when you're building a project of this scale, and you're a country like the United States, and you want to only displace a limited number of people, it's sort of like, why buy one when you can buy two for twice as much? They sort of prerequisite it. Have you seen that movie Contact, where he says, why buy one when you can buy two for twice as much? Any case, let's see. We're in Lake George, and we're going to go to, I call it the Red Cabin, because I used to live in a red cabin before we were displaced. There's Red Cabin 2. Yeah, 2. It starts with 2. So we'll load that profile. And you can see you'll definitely need some locks for a short. But it's not that long, 2.5 miles one way, and then another 3.5 miles the other way. It's not that far to need locks. And so if locks, if you only are going in a short distance, you can gain quite a bit of altitude quickly. Or if you're going a long distance, you can spread that altitude gain out over quite a bit. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. But let's start over here. So it's nice and flat. That doesn't need locks. And then we get to here. Boom, you might need a lock. And then you certainly need a lock at some point. And then back on down, you need locks if you're going to go both directions. So it looks like, and I don't remember, to be honest. I'm pretty sure the water flows, well, we can just use altitude to determine. The water flows the water flows against you if you're going down the hill, down toward the east, until you get to here, and then it's all downhill from there, all the way to Denver. And so we'll go zoom in. And you can, of course, I'm going to upload all these files I made so you can explore and modify this to your liking over on zchg.org. I'll go ahead and put it there on my website, zchg.org. You can modify that to your liking. Now, some advantages. The infrastructure is already in place. There's those dirt roads. Camp Wildhorn. There's a Lutheran camp over on the hills somewhere and over here as well. And Camp Firewalker. And it doesn't do it justice. This valley through here, you almost lose an hour or two of sunlight every day because of how steep it is. So it's perfect for filling up with water. And you can see that there's sort of locks already in place with the existing natural or perhaps unnatural infrastructure. Well, I call it natural because it's been there a while now, but it is a man-made thing. And so our cabin was right there. And we had people move in across the street right there. But when we moved here, there weren't any really other permanent buildings inside of the valley. This guy's far enough up the hill he wouldn't be displaced. This one, though, would be underwater if they were to build this canal. It would have to be, unless they. And so, when you're deciding, when you're playing SimCity with people's lives, and you're deciding whether to bury them underwater, you can pick. Certainly factors in picking a route that has less of these as possible, but you're pretty much going to alienate somebody, and you've got a choice. You know, you can either pay them eminent domain, top dollar, or you can just pretend that you're not going to run them over and run them out of there. And I think they chose the latter with us. What do you think? In any case, that's portion 1 of Red Cabin. Let's go to Red Cabin 1. I call it, which is portion 2 in the case of our journey. Where did it go? Red Cabin. Oh, that, I don't know why it does that. It unminimizes it. Elevation profile. And we'll walk you through it. Average slope 1.3%. That's another reason, you guys. That's another reason they chose this route, or I think they chose this route, is it's just such a gentle slope. It's the perfect candidate. You got your infrastructure in place. It's a nice gentle slope, and it's the natural. It naturally creates a when you fill it up with large volume, it naturally creates without needing to produce locks the whole way, all the way to Cheeseman. You know, very little construction required, lower cost, less people displaced. So I think that's why they chose that route. If they did do so, in fact they did. But you know, I think they did. And so we'll go through it. We'll go fly over it really quick, up close. And also, I should mention, I hate how it does that. No, that's right. That's what I wanted before. Although I think some of my markers got moved a bit. Look at those. Why are those there, you know? Was it perhaps that this was a 50-year plan or a 100-year plan? And, you know, I wouldn't have had a problem with them relocating us if they had paid us something for it, you know, something reasonable, but they didn't want to play it that way, it would appear. And so this portion, they would probably have to build something out. Maybe not, though. Sort of depends on how much flow you've got. And this lake, of course, being deep lake with nice sides, would be amenable to filling up even higher. Into the Cheeseman Canyon. Okay. Let's do the final. Did I call it Decker? I think I called it Decker. Which, this would piss some fishermen off. This is legendary fishing. But, you know, if Denver wants it, Denver gets it. I think probably the city-state that is Denver might get their way on this one, huh? What do you think? Zoom out so you can see it. Look at that. There's a little drop off, a little overhead dam there that would have to move. Other than that, it's a pretty smooth journey until the very end. Let's go through it. I was going to say, portions like this, a cargo ship, they're not going to do that. They're going to bulldoze it, probably bulldoze it. You know what I mean? They're going to bulldoze those windy turns so that it's passable by large ships. But a raft guide, he'd do that no problem. That'd be splashy fun. So it just really depends on the size of the vessel. The bigger the vessel, obviously, the less curves and the less steepness that you want. So they would probably do a couple of locks through here, but not too many, you know. And the nice thing about those locks is they also slow things down. Going through here. And then there's a lot of camping through here that would probably, I don't know if it would disappear completely, but it would look different. And it certainly would be strange having that, there's that overhead dam. Certainly would be strange having a big old cargo ship go by. I think they're cool. And like I said, like if they had asked me nicely, they had told me in advance they were fixing to displace me, I understand I love the St. Lawrence. It was one of my favorite vacations. To take a sailboat and journey down up the St. Lawrence, and it's the best way to see the world, in my opinion. So I guess they didn't realize if that's what they did to me, that they could have just asked. Better to ask than to take. I don't know why it would have to be secret, but I guess it is what it is. And so now all of a sudden, look at this. We're in Denver. And look at this. There is infrastructure already in place in Denver. And while I'm over here, let's look at this. So this is the South Platte, I believe. This river will take you all the way to, the Missouri, the Mississippi. But first, these city-states, each of them is going to want a piece of the pie, right? So you've got all these cities which appear to already have the infrastructure in place. Boulder, I call that one Del Camino, which isn't really that big. That's probably why it's going to be underwater. It's already underwater. Longmont's getting pretty big. Loveland's bigger than you think. Loveland's got some interesting hands and power in the area. It's also per capita the highest sculptors, if you didn't know, and home of the Loveland Post Office, the famous Loveland Post Office. And Fort Collins, pretty powerful city, state. Of course, all of them within the gravity of Denver and DIA and Byzantine, Constantinople, Rome 2.0, Rome 3.0, I don't know. But look at this, it feeds into Nebraska. It goes all the way out into the Missouri and Mississippi, if I recall correctly. Over here you can barely see, there it is, there's that mighty Mississippi, feeds into it. So you've got that whole, let's look at it, you've got that whole map that comes online. Where did I put that? Yes, look at that. Once you get over to the Mississippi, this is gonna light up like a light bulb once they feed that river system, and it'll also feed the Colorado. It's the same thing on the West Coast. If you follow it, there's a lot of infrastructure that appears to be sort of secretly being put in place to replace that aging or expensive, really, air flying is an expensive way to move stuff. When I studied human geography, railway is the third cheapest way to move stuff. Second cheapest way is the waterway, and the cheapest is pipelines. The pipeline is the cheapest way to move stuff, but of course liquids travel more nicely than commercial goods. That's the cheapest way to move stuff. Pipelines, rivers of water itself, same thing. Actually, rivers are cheaper than pipe for water, but a lot of times with pipe you need to go uphill again. And then electricity also factors in, certainly does. Before I forget, let's go through some of this. I went through that with you. This I believe does feed in as well. It's no longer conspiratorial. $2 million cloud seeding program. It's probably been around a lot more than that, a lot longer than that. Wild horse. This is an interesting study. And Kansas wants in the game, huh? And Oklahoma wants in the game. It's big money, connecting the dots, connecting the East Coast and the West Coast without the need for Panama. They've been trying to find another way for decades. Because, let's face it, Panama's not always stable. And that's why. And, at the end of the day, I'm an economics major, you guys. At the end of the day, it's just an economics problem I'm trying to solve. And I get that. But, JFK talks about it being repugnant in a fair and honest and open society to have secrets, because they shouldn't have secrets in a society like ours. It goes against our very core, and you shouldn't displace people in a society like ours. You should take care of your own people. If there's one or two people who stick around to the very end, they should be compensated for being relocated. We don't need to do the Trail of Tears all over again with people, especially people who in the area of Park County in that specific basin that's going to get flooded if they do this. They don't need to be, those impoverished people don't need to be forcefully relocated, So, yeah, I would encourage you to go through this on your own time, but I'm just going to really fast in case this disappears. You never know what's going to disappear. Yeah, if they just asked me, hey, do you want to move? I'd be like, well, how much? What's fair? Because we were building our lives, and I'm sure there's other people who are just building their lives and who are trying to start over. And you can't exactly start over if you're out of the frying pan and into the fire. I don't know why they're doing like a UPS label. That's interesting. In case this disappears, here it is for your archive. So sorry. You can always fast forward. I assume most people watching this have already done so. Oh, this is interesting. The Colorado River Aqueduct. Look at those gorgeous graphics. In hindsight, it was a part of our history. Just like what's going to happen next with our infrastructure changes. Part of our history. But beg, borrow, or steal. It's better to ask than to beg, borrow, or steal. Borrowing's okay as long as you pay it back. But it's never okay to steal or borrow steal or beg in these modern times. Trying to get stuff done. I guess it's okay for them to beg. They do that all the time, right? It just won't get them anywhere. So they resort to the stealing. This is a gorgeous article. I love this article. Missouri River Pipeline. Kansas. Factor Kansas. Kansas wants a piece of the pie. Kansas has some interesting water rights. If you didn't know, Colorado has legacy water rights in general. Oh, this talks about how people were condemned from their own land in order to make way for eminent domain for Aurora, which isn't even in Park County. That's how messed up that is. Aurora is not even in Park County. And if you go through Joseph K. Media, you'll find out what I went through, what I'm going through currently, with basically trying to pay them our land tax and under duress, and they won't accept payment, it would appear. So that's interesting. Wonder why that is. Maybe this has something to do with it. Could also be those casinos out there, the ranches out there that are popping up. Big money, big players, certainly. Big secrets, perhaps, perhaps. Yep, that's sort of what they look like if you didn't know those pipelines. They're sort of ugly, aren't they? There's a big one in the Big Thompson we used to drive by when I was a kid growing up. Look at that. I love pictures. They look like veins, don't they? That's sort of what they are. They're veins of the earth. And then they do this. Of course, and then Sleeper, Nebraska, question mark? Could be. And there's that Platte. I think another way they might connect is right here. The Platte I mentioned. I might go through that still. Connect the Platte to the Colorado. It could be done. But it's an economics problem. They're going to go with the one that makes less sense. Hey, there's that article again. That's interesting. They're going to go with the one that makes less sense. On the one hand, because it makes more sense on the other. It makes sense economically. It makes sense with the infrastructure that's in place. Might make sense per a plan that we the general public know nothing about. And like I said, I'm so sorry for scrolling. It's a lot. It's a lot to go through. But I think it's important for archival purposes. I will supplement all of this. You can go to it on your own time. If this is mostly just, like I said, in case something gets deleted, you can use that pause button. Otherwise, I encourage you to use the supplements that I'll be sending you. And then, well, the narrative is we needed to conserve, and we needed it because of all the drought. What do you think? Is that still the case, or maybe it has something to do with them laying the pipe work for the future? Could be bad, could be good. I'll touch on this stuff last. The other attempts that they've made over the years to establish a backup to the Panama Canal, which, if you didn't know, Panama, way down here. So those boats have to go all the way around through the Panama Canal. Where is it? Is that thing? Is that it? That big scar? I don't know. I actually don't know. I think that's it, though. I think that's the Panama Canal. That's interesting. Boy, I bet that's gorgeous. I bet that would be something to see from the water. Even if there's a bunch of mosquitoes down there. And then Nicaragua, another candidate. There are lots of candidates. You could build a canal anywhere. You got enough money, wherewithal, permission from your populace. You could build it anywhere. Where's Nicaragua? I should know that. I've been there before. There it is. Can you believe that? They're actually thinking about putting a canal here. And sort of makes sense because there's a lake. You know, you could cut a line in there. This is gorgeous. I don't really want to tell anybody about that. I'm going to skip past that. I didn't say anything. And then I guess they would put it here. I've got that article to pull up we'll talk about. And there's a couple other candidates, pretty much all along here. Costa Rica could do it. Panama's already done it. But, and then, you know, Panama's had a lot of instability because of it. Might help. Guatemala, I've heard too, they might do. Or even in Mexico, perhaps. You know, where's the linchpin? But anyway, you go down, you can imagine quite a bit of time, money, and energy spent going through the Panama. It would be much better to have it in place for the United States' own interests, anyway, right through the continental U.S. It would also sort of connect the filament to that light bulb. Okay, so let's go some of those alternate routes real quick, shall we? Let's see. Kansas City. Yeah, Kansas City. That's the one I was going to do earlier, very early in the presentation. You know, a little more aggressive slope, but the advantage perhaps being it dumps into the Arkansas. And speaking of which, you could also go up to Arkansas. But why would you want to destroy the Royal Gorge, you know, and why would you want to destroy the Ark? That's the most famous of all the United States rafting, even though it's overcrowded and it's overrated. Why would you want to destroy that? So, go along this profile really quick. What do you think? And I haven't done this journey in a while, so forgive me if I forget some things, as I did even with this stuff. I kind of threw all this together the last 2 days, so, you know, even though I've lived in Colorado much of my life, a lot of it is you don't see it from this perspective until you take the time to draw a map. I'm glad I did this because I get to see so much country that I didn't know about. Sort of put a map together in my head. I'm not actually very good with maps, so this also helps me there. Yeah, it's so slow to generate. You go faster, and my little old laptop is not keeping up these days too, so that's why I will supplement. And I drew these really fast, but you could certainly reduce the slope of this, get it down to that 2%, you know, which I think is appropriate for what the job is. I think 1% is appropriate for most canals, but, you know, desperate times, desperate measures, desperate infrastructures. This is a massive undertaking. Any route you take, certainly take 50 or more years to do, even if you had all your chips in play properly. A lot of competing interests cooperating interests. Check out that Joseph K. Media. Talks a lot about that. Love Letter Media talks a lot about that. And, for the safety of my family, please do archive all this. Thank you. Yeah. And that dumps us into, where are we? Lincoln Park, Kansas City, Florence. And, I believe that's the Missouri water system. There's that pipeline. Whoa. Water slide, let's go back on up. Woo! And then, yeah, they're going to build a pipe there. Let's just be real. Okay, so let's try out West Creek. Let's try out, I didn't even name this route. I forget what I named it. I named it something. And I'll go over this river. The reason they're not going to do the river is because there's just no infrastructure in place. It wouldn't make sense. And did I already do the river? That's a good question too. Let's do West Creek because I found it really easily. 2.1, acceptable for the job anyway. Go through the profile. Alright, let's take West Creek on a journey. Magic School Bus. And I'll start out over here, even though that's not part of the profile. I wish Google Earth did a better job generating names. I don't know. But look at that. See that? That tells me that they're, like water rises, it's going to choose the easiest course. They might change every few years, change their mind. And they got the infrastructure in place already if they choose to. I just think, I'm biased because they mess with me. They might well choose this instead, this route. It might well make more sense. Dynamite that, Make it so a cargo ship could fit. Dynamite that. It's sort of like, you got to see it from their perspective too. They want to do something great. It is going to be great. There's some things where, it makes perfect sense from a SimCity point of view. It doesn't make any sense from a humanity point of view, a lot of what they have to do. And I get it, but it doesn't make it right, We're a country of principles, so you got to do it right. You got to do it right or not at all. And I truly believe in this country, of all countries on the planet, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can do it right, and you can support the infrastructure. And you can make people who would have been displaced in any other country, you can make them do okay. That's should be what's a beacon of light and hope for our country. And you've seen this route from here forward, but I'll show you again just for posterity. Dynamite, or maybe a boat could, maybe a really skilled helmsman, or they probably have a guy who just does it. He takes over the controls from the sea crew, for the whole journey. Definitely, though, places you just blow that up. I don't mean like in a destructive way, of course. I mean like in a way that builds the infrastructure necessary for this next round of our great country's history. And I love my country. And I love my country. A lot of it is because of this waterway. We're so blessed. We're so blessed, and it's going to work out, you guys. It's going to work out. We're going to make this work too. I really believe that. And I'm sorry, my computer has always had trouble rendering through this area, so definitely could make some improvements on the angle of attack for some of that for my profile. And we're in Denver again. Wait, are we in Denver? No. Oh, cool. So I don't have to take you down. I don't have to take you down the canyon twice. Where are we? There we are. Big old drop off there. Naturally, there's a dam there. They would have to fix that for the locks. Make it lock friendly. Yep, in Denver. And same thing. It looks like almost like they've got the infrastructure already in place. I didn't even highlight all of it for this volume to open up on this river to feed into that Missouri, the Mississippi, one way or the other. I think I got one more to show you. You could take Leadville. Leadville's sort of hairy though. I don't think they'll do that. And then I'll show you real quick. I didn't draw the profile for it, but you could. I'll show you in a second. I'll finish the ones I did profile. I did profile Air Force Academy, but come to think of it, I think what they're doing out there is just laying pipe. Let's see. I think pipe, but no, it was AFA. I'll take you through the profile. It's an interesting route. I don't think it makes sense to do the canal. I think it would only make sense for the pipes. Might have something to do with what they've been doing over there. What they may have been doing over there, I should say. Okay, alternate one, I need to take you down. Now we'll go and zoom in. You can, of course, always do this on your own time, too. Yeah, it's not worth it for you to see from my computer, because my computer's having trouble generating this for some reason. Oh, there it is. Yeah, and also, I mean, like, where would it go once you got there? It doesn't make sense. It was just an idea I had. I don't think it makes sense. Let's see. Alternate one, where are you, guy? There it is. Yeah, that's the last one of this. Besides Leadville, and I'll take you up to North Platte real quick without the profile. 2.4, that's pretty hairy. That might be why they wouldn't choose that. That's pretty hairy, even though there's nothing real aggressive at any one time. It's just sort of, it's just too much. For quite a while, 18.4 miles. I mean, it's not too far, but you got to think every mile of this has got to cost millions of dollars, unless they can. The easiest way always being to just fill it up with water. I mean, think about when you were a kid playing on the playground, filling up a sandbox. Not a whole lot different. But like I said, they do appear to have that infrastructure in place. You know, they do appear to have it in place as a plan B, perhaps. Why is it so hairy? I mean, from here it doesn't look too bad. It's tough because as a raft guide, I'd take all of this. You know, it's none of this is really too hairy, except for those overhead dams. A couple of class 5s here and there wouldn't do. Portage around that, you know. Forget that, guy. Up through West Creek. You've seen that before. Leadville. Is Leadville highlighted? Where did I put you, Leadville? Lake George. Yeah, it's on there. It's still on there. Where did I saw it a second ago. There it is. Boom shakalaka. Leadville's pretty hairy, and you know, sort of like that story. I walked uphill both ways to school. 3-foot snow drifts. It's sort of hairy, but it is definitely, they're definitely piping that water over there. I think that's what they're doing with that side for the most part. I started, you know, it's much the same. It's much the same to start off as the one I picked, what I think they're going to go with. But it gets pretty, I forget. I mean, I can't even. It's also just hard from a common sense. You start losing track of where you are in space. I guess you could try to go up through Copper, or along this railway. I mean, look what they had to do for the freaking railway. You know, it's just I don't see it. I don't see it. I mean, there's Avon. That's the other thing is we don't need to harp on them too much. But those rich people up there, they're going to be pretty upset if their stuff gets torn up when you can. I mean, I get it. Like I said, I get what they're doing. What they're probably doing. This is so scalable. You could fill this up as much as you want with, and you could support the whole country for such a long time. It's going to be beautiful. But I wanted you to see also. There's the Salt Lake to give you scale. There's the Great Salt Lake, and there's you know what I mean. And let's do one last thing. Let's try to get to Nebraska up through Wyoming, shall we? Let's see if I remember how to do it. So, offhand, I see two candidates, this river or this river. I want to say this is the North Platte, but don't quote me on that. Are you going to tell me what you are, buddy? I really don't like how poorly Google Earth currently labels things. And maybe it's my lack of understanding of the tool. In any case, you can see there's some infrastructure along the way. Look how narrow that is. So and there's no infrastructure built up. So it's one of these things. If they had started this 50 years ago, this might have made more sense. But they didn't, I don't think. Oh, and I'll take you down the Colorado to finish. And I'll tell you my little story to finish. Please stick around for that. Any case, I showed you a picture prior. There is a way. See, I already got frustrated. There is a way to go up through here and in through Scottsbluff and through Ogallala. It doesn't go through Ogallala, and that would just leave out all these players. And it would. The one nice thing about it is it would relieve those railways up there. I told you it looked like a stroke was going to happen. It would relieve those railways up there. But at what cost? I mean, you would have to thicken up this. And you could go west too. It looks like maybe they're thinking about it. You could go west with it. Doesn't that look like arteries? I think it's so beautiful after looking at this for 2 days straight. I just think it looks like arteries. Gorgeous. Isn't nature amazing? Isn't God's country beautiful? Excuse me, I have to scratch my nose. You could work with some of this to get the volume up. And no pipes in place either, I might add. How do we get around that? Ooh. It just gets hairy. Oh, we're not even in Wyoming yet. Okay. So you go north, north, north. It could be done. I don't think they'll play it because it's the infrastructure and the economics. I don't think it's because it's too cold, although that is the stereotype. And plus, I mean, I don't want to tell you guys, but Wyoming is beautiful. It's a secret. Yeah, and so there would be the pass. That's the one nice thing about it is the pass is very negotiable. I mean, you could cheater through here. You could make a fake river through here and forget going all the way north. I lost track of the Platte at some point. I know there probably is a way to highlight it, but I didn't ever. Oh. Does that help us or not? Nah, didn't help me. Anyway, you can sort of see if you went that. Let's go over to the Colorado. It could be done. Oh, I like that. That helps me a lot. Too bad I didn't know about that like 2 days ago. Man, that surveyor was... That's funny. Where am I? Help me in with this. Okay. Here comes Colorado. Now, a little bit of extra flow required, but look at this. You got the Grand Lake over here. Right? Is that the Grand Lake? Oh, sorry, excuse me. You got the Grand Lake over here, and you got that lake over there. You know, so they can open that up, and they can add piping. That's going to be billions of dollars or millions of dollars. And you see this basin, you get rid of all this squirrely stuff, but once you're at Kremling, and that's why I picked Kremling. Once you're at Kremling, look how very little you'd have to go before you had the depth. All you got to do with the Colorado in most places is add some volume to it. Through here, just to add some volume to it, you're going to be fine. Fix some of those turns. There is a place or two where I saw that looked like they were building the infrastructure out. And then that railway going along it, it's already in play, you guys. It's just a matter of time. Is this the Colorado? Did I lose it? It's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. Did I miss it? I think that's the Colorado still. It does. One of my complaints is that and it could be a setting I just don't know about. I'm pretty new to Google Earth, but it doesn't seem to tell you where you are, what river you're on. Which, of course, if I'm only looking at rivers, is super annoying. Sorry, I'll get rid of that profile. Oh, there it was. Did you see it? Colorado. We're on the right river. Super annoying. What is that thing? Wheat farm. That's cool. Come on, load. Load, load, load. I'm a computer scientist, engineer, economist by schooling and by trade, and so this is a 10-year-old laptop I'm rocking, you guys. It's pretty funny. I apologize if I took a wrong turn. I'm pretty sure we're still on the Colorado. And like I said, I'm not so great with maps. I'm pretty good at, not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty good at reading rivers because I've been around water my whole life. Not so good at remembering where I am on a river, per se. I sort of let the river take me where I'm going. I know that's not a great survival skill, but that's sort of why I was the last to graduate when I did rafting, because I didn't care where I was. I just liked taking it all in. You know what I mean? Look, that's the infrastructure I was telling you. Looks like they got stuff to get the flow up through here, or get it up to where they could slow the water down. And that's one way to cheater that flow. Reduce your angles, reduce your pitch, increase the water flow, decrease the water speed. Those are the ways you can control it. And of course, change your boat dynamics, speed, size, tonnage, all that. All that can play in. I mean, you could theoretically build an empire with just mules, and it's been done before, or alpacas, as they did in South America. But man, it takes longer. It's so much easier to just load it all up onto a big old cargo ship. Look at that. Look at that. God's country. This is a painting, even when it's so poorly rendered like this. That's God's country. We are so blessed. And it's the river just keeps giving. It's like a blood supply for the whole country. Better than the railway, cheaper than the railway, cheaper than the trucker system, which is the most expensive besides airfare. Flying is the most expensive, other than maybe blimps, Uh-oh, I got lost. Oh, no, I didn't. I remember that. Getting there. Snake. Look at that. Where are we? Almost to the coast. One heck of a way to travel, isn't it? At the very least. What happens here? Man, it just dries up right at the end. They'll fix that. That can be solved. We're so close to the end there. That can be solved. Heck, they might solve that. I don't want to say it because it's a bad idea, but they could even pump salt water up that there when they get that close to the ocean. Maybe they're doing that already. I don't know. And told you I'd tell you my story. I might edit this out later. I don't know. Well, first of all, Nicaragua has a rich history of being exploited for purposes of building that canal. There's that map I promised you. Lots of options, scenarios, you know, A or B or C or D or E or F. And it's such a complex problem. Water rises. They sort of probably are best served approaching it all at once. And here's this gentleman. You know, this is what happens when there's a linchpin. It's sort of in nobody's best interest that there's only one Panama Canal. I get it. I'll put this in the supplements. Intercoastal Highway. Man, you guys should research that. It's so cool. It's an amazing origin story. And our engineers and nature, to their credit each, did a great job. Colorado River. And then I'll end it with this, which may or may not delete.
Important detail. David Whiskey told me when I was confronting him about the dog in the yard and telling him to stop, to leave us alone. David Whiskey told me, "Calm down, motherfucker. We're gonna pay cash for Alicia's house, and we're gonna bulldoze the place." Now, Lindsay Grover, who also goes by the name Lindsay I Can Sketch You, various other aliases, she's told me in the past that she used to be an operator or black ops. Her husband, Rudy, I believe Rudy Grover, he's told me he was Delta Force and was recruited by the farm. So as it relates to the RICO Act, I think this is very important for anybody who might be investigating all of this. On the night of the party, where the band came by, when we could hear the gunshots at 4 a.m, Kevin Jingling was there, Mason was there, Lindsay was there. Now, there were only 2 cash offers on Alicia's home. One of them was from Logan Gunn. Logan Gunn, there is a sketch that Lindsay I Can Sketch You, Lindsay Grover, had made and posted on her public Facebook, which depicts Logan Gunn. So Logan Gunn was seen entering the home. Logan Gunn opened up a cash offer. David Whiskey told me they were going to make a cash offer and level the place. This, to me, is poignant. Immediately after Alicia finally sold the place and we left, Lindsay posted on Facebook that she was moving away from the area. Quite a while prior to all of this, Lindsay had indicated that she had interest in a house up in that area. She wanted to downsize, and that the house that Alicia owned would be so perfect for her. The day after, I informed Lindsay Grover, Lindsay I Can Sketch You, that she and her son Mason were to leave us alone, stay away from us, because of
So, you can gather what I think the reason we were displaced from both Park County and Teller County. Well, we're still in Park. We still have ownership in Park, but Alicia was, and myself with her, were kicked out of Teller County against our will. I think I've been trying to say, it's a 4-hour long documentary. Joseph K. Media. It's quite,
Hold on. We
quite
have
a bit.
children. We have children.
There's quite a bit to my story. And it has to do with the power companies. It has to do with the municipalities, the sheriff, and Colorado Springs, and forest fires, and blizzards, goats getting poached. It's a long story. It would take me many hours to uncompress, but it's there for anybody who's interested in finding out. This is still going on in Park County. God bless. Thank you for your time. May this find the appropriate hands, and God bless the USA.